So I call this Community 1, and you're going to see why in a second here. So community, first of all, what's that? I'll define that for purposes of this talk, that the Packet Pushers community consists of the people that listen, read, or watch our content. So if you don't know what Packet Pushers is, if you're not familiar with it, packetpushers.net is the place to start. We are a podcast network. We started with one podcast in 2010. We now have 8, most of which are updated regularly. 7 of them are. And one of them is an incubator channel that is for the community. It's our community podcast where anyone who wants to try podcasting can jump in there. We have news, we have blogs, we have a community blog, in fact, where people from the community write on packetpushers.net because they immediately get an audience. They get a chance to interact with other people that are in the community, other professionals, and share their knowledge. And then who are all of these folks? Mostly they're IT practitioners. Mostly they are people in the trenches building data centers and solving security problems and building out wireless infrastructure and dealing with cloud and so on. But it's also technology vendors. If you write about technology, if you are in this community as someone who's interested in Tech Field Day, people in Silicon Valley are reading your stuff as well. They are part of that community. Industry analysts are also part of that community. The Gartners of the world and 451 Research and IDC and so on. They are also reading what people in this community write, whether it's Packet Pushers or just everyone in this room. And then journalists. The news media are also following. You've noticed if you've written a blog that has an opinion about something, there's a chance that you'll get picked up by the media. They'll say, oh, I was reading thus and such a blog by a technologist, and they said this, and they'll actually share your opinion in the wider IT media. So that's how I would define community for this. All those cats looking through our logo there, that orange and red thing of triangles, that's the Packet Pushers logo. But if you get down to how we built that community, how did we actually build it? And the answer is one person at a time. And that's the focus of my talk here. It's not about this ocean of faces and people you don't know and numbers as you're looking at your WordPress statistics. It is really about individuals, and which is why I titled this Community 1. Because the relationship you're building when you're building out a community is with one person at a time, one individual that you've written for or built a YouTube video for because you taught them something, showed them how to do something, expressed an opinion that helped them make a decision about technology, educated them in some way. That's a very individual thing that you've done. Maybe you don't know that person, maybe you haven't seen that person, but that's really what your community is. A whole bunch of individuals. And so one person at a time is the most critical way, I believe, to think about community. If you're thinking about it in terms of numbers, you gotta remember something here. Numbers are just stats. Numbers really obfuscate that relationship that you have with that person who likes to read you because of your writing style or watches you on YouTube, etc. And we can get really caught up in numbers, right? We want performance, we want downloads, we want consumption and views and all of that. If you're a person who likes to create media, that's a big thing. And that's a certain metric of popularity, but it's not the important one. The important one, again, is you and that individual, that one person. And that's the most important thing to keep in mind, because if you do that, the numbers will come. The numbers will come. So let me give you a little bit of history here to understand this, because whatever numbers Packet Pushers has at this point, which is, it's a large number. I'd rather not talk about it on camera at this point, I guess, but come talk to me after if you want to get into those things. It takes a long time, and it starts for us writing for an individual audience in a specific way, writing for, in my case, practitioners. In 2007, blogging about, I was studying for the CCIE program, and I blogged almost every single day as I went through that for about 18 months, going through that program. I was writing for a specific audience. I was sticking to a formula. So as you find your audience, one of the things that your audience will like as you're building out your community is predictability. They want to know what you're going to write about. When they see a new article that you've written come up in the feed, they have an expectation of what they're going to experience when they go there, what kind of information they're going to glean from you, the style in which you communicate. you want to kind of stick to a formula is a good thing to do, and then produce consistently. It's a lot of our blogs tend to go through these dry spells where we haven't written for a while, and it's been 3 months. I should really write something. Has it been 3 months? Wow! Or it's 6 months or a year, and you haven't written. Hard to build community when you're not actually engaging the people that you engaged at one point in time. You need to produce consistently to keep that person, that individual, captivated by you. And that's how it started for us. For us, Packet Push is more than just me. I'm just one of several people that are involved now. Myself and Greg Farrow began the podcast after we had been doing writing. We'll talk about podcasting in a minute here. But when you're writing, when you're creating content of whatever kind today, you are doing something very important with that person who is consuming whatever this thing is that you've produced, this article, this video, etc. You are creating trust. And if you think about human relationships, what a human relationship really is about is trust. When you meet someone, you find that you have a commonality with them. You find that they think about things the same way you do, or they have a common set of problems, or they view the world in a similar way as you do. They behave in a rational way. They can solve problems in a way that makes sense to you. And all of those things serve to build trust. And when you're a public figure writing, you are building trust with that audience, with that community. And that's the thing that is absolutely crucial to your community, is to A, build that trust, and then B, maintain that trust once you've got it. That cements the relationship. That holds it together. And that's the notion of free hugs. We'll talk about that here. So one of the ways you build trust when you're creating content, when you're writing, etc., be truthful, be honest, and be facts-driven in whatever you're writing. That seems obvious, but it isn't, sadly. If you read a lot of things, there are aspects of it that can be colored in some way, that can be, you can withhold your honest opinion because reasons. There's a lot of reasons why that might be. But you're breaking away from the trust that is the most key element to have with your community. You want them to be able to trust you. Absolutely crucial. Being reasonable and balanced is another aspect of this. Rants are fun. It's great to get up and be really pissed off about something and just go on an epic rant about thing, whatever it is. But that's not balanced, a lot of times. That's not reasonable a lot of times. And people tend to not trust you so much if you go off. They may be entertained by you, but they may not trust you. And you really want that trust. Again, be predictable. You want to have people have an expectation of what you're going to deliver to them, and then deliver that to them. Being predictable matters. If you're doing one sort of content and then present it in a completely different way, or you decide you're going to be lazy and not do the editing you need to do, or et cetera, and you deliver a substandard product, you're not being predictable. People are like, do I want to deal with this? I never know what I'm going to get. You want that predictability. And then beyond that, then, the free hugs. Well, I call this the human touch. So when you are public, when you're out there, people are going to be reaching out to you because they want to know more information. You wrote something technical and difficult. Maybe you didn't explain yourself well. Maybe they don't have the technical background to understand enough about what you wrote, and they have more questions. Great. Answer emails, respond to comments, interact with people on social media. Treat people, whether you've met them or not, like they are peers and colleagues and coworkers, and not some number out there, not some statistic that I don't know who they are, I'm not going to bother with them. Every single person out there, and there can be a lot of them, and there can be a lot of questions that come at you, or other sorts of interactions, or just people that want to know you or to meet you or whatever it is. There's a lot of that, and just handle it all. They're just people that need the free hug. They want to interact with you, and that. None of us are anything special if we have a blog or a podcast or whatever it is. We're just people like everybody else. So don't believe that you're so amazing that I don't have time for the little people with their questions. That couldn't be less appropriate. You've really got to think of everyone as an equal, because they are. You build that trust, you cement those relationships, and that all goes, feeds back into that community. Communities last, in many cases, for years and years and years. The community will spread not just because of you and what you're doing, but because of what other people in your community tell people outside your community. Hey, you should subscribe to this blog or listen to this podcast or watch these YouTube videos. They're really good. Word of mouth is going to help build your community because you've taken the time to build trust. Build trust and cement a relationship with folks. Okay, so we did all of that. Most of that in the beginning for us was writing, lots of blogging. Oh gosh, thousands of articles, millions of words between myself, Greg Farrow, Drew Conray Murray. We were all doing this in various capacities. Greg and I were independent. Drew was in tech media. And then over time, this started out with Greg and I, we began a podcast in 2010. We wanted to do a podcast about networking. Wasn't anybody doing a podcast about networking. We were filling a void, and this is important. When you think about community, you can see another community that's out there and go, I can do that. And you're gonna rock up, you're gonna build a podcast and just go for it. And then the people don't come. It can be difficult to start something new if there's things already in the space. So, for example, I did a show called Citizens of Tech for about a year and a half, maybe something like that. It wasn't as uber nerdy and techie and enterprise focused as most of the content that you'll find on Packet Pushers. And Citizens of Tech did okay, but not great. Why? Crowded market. If you have a show that just ups and talks generically about tech or talks about consumer tech and these kind of things, there's a zillion podcasts that are out there and it's very hard to compete. So for us, part of the magic, I guess, of building the community was we were filling this void where there wasn't anything out there in 2010 that was talking about networking. And if you try to do that now, well, now there's several podcasts about networking that are out there. It could be harder to build a community in that space or any area of tech because a lot of people have done it. Several of us in this room are in that world already. I don't say that to say don't do it. Do it. Just if you're expecting, I'll have 10,000 people listening in a year. You will not very likely, because it's hard. There's already a lot of shows out there. When we began podcasting, we reached a whole lot of people that maybe knew us because we were writing before, but we began making new relationships as well. And our attitude was, okay, as new people reach out to us and talk to us, we're going to include as many people in this community as we can. So what we did was, you emailed us because you had this thing going on at work. You want to come on the podcast and talk about that? And so we just engaged those people. Hey, you want to write? And we had people say, Greg or Ethan, you encouraged us to start a blog or something like that, something that we do frequently. But I don't want to. Starting a blog is like work, and I don't want to maintain anything. Great, blog on packetpushers.net. And so we had new writers that would join that way. Use our platform if it helps. We had excess capacity in our podcasting world. You want to start a podcast? Great. Have a whole bunch of people listen to you talk. Some of that is it's difficult to do that at first if you've never podcasted before. There's a lot of technical stuff that goes on in the background. So if someone eases that for you, it can help. That's another way we just added to community in that way. And then we reinforce trust through individual relationships, meaning this goes back to the free hugs on the previous slide, just different channels. As the podcast grew, as more and more and more people were listening to the show, they wanted to engage with us and then engage with each other. Okay, we started an IRC channel. I'm not in the IRC channel very much. I've handed off op rights to several other people that monitor and maintain that channel. There was, last I knew, 150 people hanging around in an old school IRC channel. Slack, we have several hundred people in a Slack group now for Packet Pushers that are part of that community. We've done Ask Me Anything episodes, another way to interact with people one-on-one. They ask us questions. We produce content out there. How am I on time? I can't see a clock.
Sorry, you have less than a minute.
I have less than a minute. Great. And then another key point here is that persistence matters. As Greg, my business partner, and other voice of the Packet Pushers is fond to say, we were too stupid to quit. That is, you just got to keep doing it. A lot of people get discouraged because the numbers aren't there. And so they give up. They don't want to keep going. We did not. We were persistent. We kept going and are still going at it. So this is my last slide here. Lessons learned along the way. when you build a community, when you have built trust and you have a lot of cemented relationships, and people will want to take advantage of that. People will want to leverage the trust you have to get their message out to other people. So, for example, our business model is sponsorship. Vendors come to the packet pushers, and we work with them to create technical content that, yes, it's a marketing exercise for those vendors, but we also want it to be educational and so on. And vendors will want to do lead generation. They want to know, well, who's listening to the show? Well, who are all of these people that are in your community? Can we get a list? Can we get emails? Do we have to say that we sponsored the show? Because we label all of our sponsored content with sponsored right in the title so that you know what you're getting. Yes, you bloody well have to say that it's sponsored. That's the relationship that we have. We would be betraying the trust of our audience if we did not say content was sponsored. So don't let people take advantage of the trust that you've built, because it's your most important element there. You got to protect your community. You got to protect their identities. You got to protect their privacy. Absolutely, it's got to be tantamount. A couple other quick points here. Don't drink your own Kool-Aid. People are going to start telling you how wonderful you are and so on. Oh, you're popular and you're famous. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. It's not that you're not any of those things. None of them. And that's not just imposter syndrome. It's just reality. And then, again, reinforcing a point I made earlier, don't allow numbers to dehumanize. If you get big or popular by whatever measure that is, all of a sudden the people will matter less to you, and it's more about download numbers and all that stuff, and you forget community one. You forget that it's all about the individuals that are there, which, again, is the most important part of community. An abrupt ending, but that is it.